Okay, I was basically just straightening up my line and I already caught the first one, so let's get it on film. You never know, it might be the only one, but seems good. Seems like a fat fish, so hopefully it's not the last one. Today we're fishing in Finnish archipelago. It's November. The conditions are pretty much perfect for pike fishing. Let's see how the pike feel about it. But my name is Antti.
And my name is Ruda. I can't remember what I was supposed to say.
Today we'll show you how to fly fish for pike.
So I have here a 9-foot 9-weight rod, which is the most common for pike fishing. I'm using intermediate line, and this kind of kit is the one which you can fish, I would say 98% of all your pike fishing anywhere in the world you go. The reels in this, what you use for pike fishing, can be basically any reel. If it has larger arbor, it's good because then when you have a bigger fish on, you can get the line quickly in. Other than that, the reel is just a kind of storage and counterbalance for your rod. What comes to the lines in pike fishing, it's if you need to choose one, it would be intermediate. No question about that. Not a big one, not a big one. When I have a small fish on, I don't usually take the line into my reel. Just pull it on a boat deck and get the fish quickly close. Release it quickly and easily. If you wonder what this float is, it's for the cases when the fish really fights back and struggles here. Sometimes you might drop it in the water, so you don't lose it. You can just pick it up later. If you haven't fished for pike with a fly before, you might wonder why I use these kind of mouth openers. Often the fly is very, very deep, and this is the only way to keep the mouth open to get the small fly out. Let's put this one back, throwing.
We've had a couple of bites and followers, so they're not really taking properly, so I'm going to try another color. Sometimes just changing from a bright color to a darker one or something like that might do the trick. I like these kind of natural flies made out of bucktail and schlappen and stuff. About these flies, I would say that the nice thing about this is that these are really easy to cast. So they don't have a lot of air resistance. So even if you're doing a long day at the sea, you're not going to be that tired after a day at the sea when you've been using these type of flies.
There's different kind of tapers on these fly lines. Mostly the pike lines are quite aggressive. They have short front taper, so you get good turnover. Then the length of the head is basically up to you. So if you fish from the belly boats or float tubes, the guys usually prefer lines with the shorter heads, whereas if you fish from the boat where you're standing higher up and you can easily keep a longer line in the air, then the line with the longer head is easier to cast further. I want to catch my big mama with this fly again.
Yeah, it's a big mama.
Antti has a fish.
It's a real big mama. Especially when the water start to cool down in the autumn or beginning of spring, fly is really effective way to fish. Many times it can be actually the most effective because you can fish it really slowly in cold water. But on top of that, of course, it's super fun. Get this one back. Perfect release. Let's get another one.
The backing on the reel, that's not really, in pike fishing, it's not that important. I have had a fish on. Just lost it. So basically you need backing just to fill the reel and to be something where you attach your fly line on. In this reel I have about maybe 50 meters of backing, which is more than enough. If you think or wonder what I have in my finger, the yellow tape looking thing, it's not tape, it's a stripping guard. It protects my finger, because as you can see, when we strip the line in, the line goes through my fingers all the time, and when you fish a lot, your hands get wet and skin gets soft. The line actually breaks the skin and you get quite bad wounds.
So we've been fishing this kind of a reed line here, but it's actually not that deep. It's only 2.6, 2.7 meters where the boat is. And we've had some takes even further away from the reed line, so I think this place is good to fish a little bit further away in the beginning, and after you fished it properly outside, you can move in a little bit and really fish it accurately just in the reed line. If you want to really fish accurately, when you move further in, it's sometimes good to use these flies with weed guards or special hooks that you can use for fishing really inside the weeds, kind of weedless. Then you can really fish accurately even inside the weed, which is sometimes really effective, especially now in the autumn. Today the water is dropping, so it might be that the fish are coming away a little bit from the reeds. So that's maybe the reason why we had some takes even further away from the reed line. One of the coolest things about pike fishing is that it lengthens the fishing season a lot, because at least in Finland, and I would say in the Baltic in general and many of the lakes, the prime season for pike fishing is spring. And now
Fish on!
Oh, cool!
So I changed the fly to this red and black, and it seems to work. Come on.
Really
Good condition
nice
fish. Good condition fish.
Yeah. Oh, cool take just next to the boat. And that's a really important thing. I actually did the last drop. So many times we actually have a double here. That's cool, first of all. And the second thing is the pike many times follow the fly really next to the boat. And the mistake is many times that you pull just the fly off the water. Well,
Yeah,
that was a
you
good
should
release. Perfect release.
always stop and
Yeah.
see.
So
Sometimes they follow. As you can see, this is fat. The stomach is full of something, probably some small roach or maybe even herring. This place, let's put it back. Back crawling.
now when you fish for pike, and they might follow even to the right next to the boat. So here, when the fly is really next to the boat, don't just lift the fly off the water, because you might see a big pike trying to get after the fly and you just pull it out of its mouth. So every time you just pull it to the surface, let it drop one more time, and if there's nothing behind it, then you can make the cast. So you won't be disappointed and see just a big 10-kilo fish trying to come after your fly and not get it.
This line, what I'm using here, has the head and the running line are different colors, as you can see. So when you make the cast, you can easily see the line in the air. You see the chains of the head and the running line, and it's easy to shoot. You don't have too long overhang, and you can just easily make a nice back cast, couple back cast, and then shoot the line out. And today, as the weather is so calm, I mean, we just have a little bit wind, small ripple on the surface, I'm not using any stripping basket because the line sits nicely on the boat deck. Whereas if it was windy day, I would definitely use the stripping basket because that would keep the line nicely coiled and sheltered from the wind so it doesn't get tangled. Now it's easy. Good weather in many ways. So Antti's using different kind of line basket. It's like a fabric basket, I would say. I think Antti can tell you more about it.
I made this basket myself, so it's just a kind of a foldable laundry basket with a carpet at the base, and I've stick some plastic tent poles through that, so the line is coiled really nicely there, and it won't tangle when I'm casting. Everybody who's ever fly fished from a boat knows that there's so many places that the fly line can tangle. It's just the fly line always finds spots where it just gets stuck. So whether you like using this kind of a line basket or the one you're using on your waist, it's a really good idea, especially when the wind picks up. Today it's okay, I wouldn't necessarily need to use it, but doesn't really matter. Works even in this calm weathers, but definitely a line basket is one you should have for fly fish for pike.
Good, nice fish. Look at that shape.
That's cool. That is cool. And you can just see the bend in the rod.
Yeah.
With these kind of a little bit bigger fish, you really feel the fish. So this is super. This is really nice.
Soon we are tangled.
Yeah.
I got my fly off.
Let's take it to the net. It's much easier for these types of fish. And they're fat and strong at the moment, so they really give you a good fight.
Yeah.
That's a nice one.
Good fish, good fish.
Yeah.
Good. Good. It's a nice fish, nice fish. It's important to use the net or use the mouth openers and stuff so that you can release the fish easily and quickly. I mean, it's good for the fish, and it would be also good for you because they have 666 number of the teeth.
I'm using a barbless hook, so it's really easy to release the fish. Especially actually the smaller fish many times are worse with the flies. But I sacrificed my hand. But the most important thing is we got the fly out safely. Nice autumn mama. I'll put it back to the net so I can take a breather. I was using the Granddaddy 9 feet 9 weight rod with an intermediate Granddaddy line. Changed the color to a little bit darker. Seemed to work. We've caught several fish now, so let's get this mama back where it belongs and try to get some more pikes.
Yeah. Well done. Yes.
Type of fly you use determines a lot how you fish it and how you can fish it and which places. I like to use these deceivers quite a lot. They're really easy to cast, and now we're casting this smaller cove in the middle of the cove. Basically here, like in general in pike fishing, you don't necessarily need to cast that long, but in these places, the longer you can cast, the better. And this kind of a fly is easy to cast pretty long, so I like to use this. Of course, the downside is that it doesn't have as much volume and kind of character as bigger fly. So you kind of have to balance with the compromise between castability and then kind of the volume and silhouette of the fly. So if you really think that you need a big fly, there's some bream maybe, and you're going after big fish and you want to use these big flies, they are really effective. But you should know that they are much harder to cast. Of course, you might end up using then a bigger rod. So now I'm using a 9 weight. I even use 8 weights many times. So with bigger fly, even a 10 weight could be a good idea. So this is the type of fly I like to use, deceiver style with some schlappen tail and bucktail in the front. Pretty sleek, not a lot of wind resistance, so Really easy to cast, and they move well, work really well. Another good option from synthetic fibers, also quite easy to cast, a lot of action, really nice looking fly. I like these type of flies, but if you want more movement, more kind of silhouette and characteristic for the fly, of course these kind of, for example, wiggle tails are really good option. A little bit harder to cast, but they do work really well. So a 9 or a 10 weight is definitely the way to go with these type of flies, or these really huge tinsels.
This is one of my favorite flies. I don't know the name for this, but it's like white, chartreuse and light blue. And I actually have here, there's a rattle. Well, obviously makes noise, but it also gives some weight. And on top of that I have tungsten eyes and kind of UV resin head, just to keep everything in shape. So this is actually quite heavy fly. So when I cast it with intermediate line, I can fish it like comes a little bit like jig. So immediately when I stop stripping, it dives and then it bounces up. So it goes like this in the water.
How we retrieve the fly and really fish the fly, there's a couple of different ways. The most common way is just the traditional strip with one hand. You can do a couple of strips, stop, couple of strips. You can vary it fast to slow, or long stops or short stops. Just see what works. Another way is put your rod in your armpit and kind of do this milk in the cow or roly-poly or whatever you want to call it. So with two hands. The good thing about this kind of retrieve is you can make a really steady retrieve, which is many times really effective. You can do it slowly, you can do it fast. You can also stop it if you want it. But I think the biggest advantage with this type of roly-poly is that you can really do a nice even retrieve, which works really effectively many times. The good thing about this kind of retrieve with two hands is that you can't use the rod for setting the hook. So when you're setting the hook for pike, you should do a strip strike. Couple of reasons. First of all, pikes have really hard mouth, so you really need to set the hook firmly. So if you raise the rod, you have too much bend in the rod, and you might not set the hook properly. You just strip it, and you have a low stretch line, so you really set it really firmly. And the other advantage is that when you do a strip strike, if you don't hook the fish, you don't pull the fly too far away from the fish. Now, if you do it with the rod like this, you pull the fly 2-3 meters away from the fish, and it might not take the fly anymore. It's not interested. But if you just do a small strip, you only strip it 30-40 centimeters, it's still in front of the fish. It might take it again. That's one really good option. So with this roly-poly or milking the cow, you have a really good contact for the fly, and you can't raise the rod, so you set the hook really firmly many times. Even if you're fishing with the traditional style, just stripping with one hand, even with this, do a strip strike. So when you feel a fish, strip it. If it doesn't hook, just continue the strip, and if you hook it, strip strike, and then you can raise the rod. Red rod is bending. This fish has eaten the fly pretty deep. I was actually casting inside the weed. I have a weed guards on the fly. You always have to have some kind of a wire or a fluorocarbon leader with pike fishing. They have sharp teeth, so you're definitely not going to catch it with the normal tippet. This is a classic style of pike leader, just fluorocarbon, and on top of that there's about 40 centimeters of wire with a lock, which is really easy to use, fast attach. This is a fluorocarbon, 0.90 millimeter, so this is just straight fluorocarbon with a lock. So you can use also fluorocarbon for really clear water, clear skies, when there's sunshine, maybe for kind of a stealthy approach. And then there's only the wire leader, so this you can use on whatever leader you want to. So if you have tippet on, you can just put this wire on top of that, or you can use it as a replacement leader for this classic leader. Casting these big rods, big flies, is a little bit different than casting a trout rod, for example. Now you might have learned how to do these high stops with small gear, They're really good, especially in the beginning if you're using this clock face type of way to teach it. So basically stopping your back cast at 1 o'clock and forward cast in 11 o'clock, for example. That's good in the beginning, but with these big rods, big flies, it's good to lengthen the casting stroke a little bit. So I'm definitely going much further in the front, much further in the back, but still maintaining straight tracking and trying to keep the rod tip in a straight plane. And one thing is very important, which actually is the biggest mistake usually in the beginning, is that don't use too much wrist. Beginners many times use too much wrist, so they're not really bending the rod, they're bending their wrist, not really good. Stiffen up that wrist a little bit and still have good hard stops, but you can definitely go a little bit further in the back and in the front with these big rods. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you should learn how to use your left hand as well for this casting. Learn how to do a double haul. So in the double haul, I'm hauling in my back cast and forward cast, so I'm pulling against the cast. And a good tip on that one is when you're casting backwards, you're actually hauling forwards, so always to the opposite direction. And of course vice versa in the forward cast. You're going forwards and you haul backwards. Let's see that in real motion. So double haul. You can see what I'm doing with my left hand and maintaining straight tracking, good double haul, relaxed, smooth stroke with hard stops. Now the next thing is what you might have already noticed, that what I did is I actually shoot through my fingers. So I'm not just letting go of the fly line, because many times we're fishing these reed lines and the accuracy is actually quite important in pike fishing, not so much distance. So I need to be accurately casting all the way next to the reeds. And if you just let go of the fly line, you have no control of the length of your cast. So you might cast too far and you're in the reeds. Now, if you shoot through your fingers, if you see that the line is going too far, you can actually stop it. So let's see how that looks. So I'm not just letting go of the fly line, I'm shooting through the fingers and stopping there so I don't go too far. So learn how to do that. The next thing is, when you learn how to do that, shoot some line in your back cast as well. So try to minimize false casting. Don't do too many false casts. You should try to get the fly out with 2 casts, maximum 3. You should be fishing, not wasting your time with the fly in the air. So what I do is I already shoot some line in the first back cast. So shoot some line in the back cast, forward cast, next back cast, and with 2 false casts I can get the fly out.
Generally, when you're thinking about the places where you fish, this, I mean, like later in the year, like now in November, well, first of all, some bigger bays or coves, they usually gather the fish before winter. They come there to feed. They are feeding bream and roach and other fish. And also, when I come to this kind of bay, I usually start fishing the kind of windy side, so that the wind is pushing against the reed. It usually brings some small bait fish there, and of course the pike are after that. I have a fish finder in front. I don't really use it to look for certain fish. It's more like for looking what's under the boat and around the boat, because we have the side imaging here. Now when we are still, you can't really see much, but when we move, when we move, you can see all the underwater grass, reed, weed, anything there. So I'm looking for different kind of places, and otherwise the big bays might look just very boring, but there's a lot of actually underwater stuff which gathers some fish different places, and that's a really big help. And of course the electric engine, what we have here, it's a really big help because it has all the GPS functions, so I can steer it left, right, forward, backwards. I can use the compass, so I give it a direction and it keeps the same speed wherever I want to go. And it also has the anchor mode, so instead of using a normal anchor, I just press this one like we are here. It moves a bit depending on the wind. but it keeps us in the same spot without playing with the ropes and heavy anchors. So if you don't have a boat available, you can also fish for pike from the shore. There's many places in Europe where you can wade. You have hard bottom, sandy, grassy beaches, and you can really just wade in normal waders. If that's not possible, like in Finland and many parts in Sweden, the banks are kind of reedy and it's a bit muddy, deep places, so you can't just wade. And those places are great to fish with the float tube because it's easy to transport. You just take it in your back, you can walk wherever you want to go, launch it, and then it's like a small boat. You can fish very accurately all places, and actually many times the float tube guys they beat the boat guys by far. I mean, they catch much more fish. In float tube it's well, not important, but it makes things much easier if you have a fly line with quite short head, because you're sitting close to the water. You can't keep such a long line in the air, so shorter head makes it much easier. Jaga. Third time. 2 takes before and then the third. Wow. And it's gone. Long line release. Good stuff.
We found the little guys, which are also in really good shape at the moment. So if you find a lot of fish in a certain spot, that's definitely a place where you should concentrate with your fishing, because they many times gather around, probably because of bait fish is gathering there, wind is pushing them, for example there. Like here now we've caught several smaller fish, and there's action all the time, so it looks good. And if there's a quiet spot at some point in this reed line, it can sometimes mean a big fish is around. So we'll continue and let's see if we catch a bigger one.
Fish on.
Nyt löytyi pientä kalaa.
We found a good spot. We have had fish on almost every cast. At least very close. And they seem to bite well. Flies are deep. So that's why I like this float.
Okay, so I'm now casting with backhand, just because I don't want to hook my boat mates over there. And when you're casting a backhand, the biggest mistake many times is that you lose your tracking, because many people are thinking about casting it backwards. I'll just show it to you with my next cast how I do it. Let's just strip in first. I want to catch a fish. No take with this cast. So like I said, the biggest mistake is that you lose your tracking when you're casting backhand. Many people are thinking about casting with your back cast, and they do it like this. They turn your back to the direction they're casting, and at the last back cast they really try to shoot it, and they actually don't maintain good tracking. They're actually going to the side. Not good. So a better option is that you're actually casting kind of in front of you. It's almost a side cast. It's not really a back cast. It's side cast in front of you, and this way you maintain the tracking much easier. Just don't go too far with the stop to the side. So try to stop it early and you get straight tracking. So let's look how that looks. Just strip in. So I'm keeping my hand in front of my body and it's almost a side cast that I'm doing. And I'm maintaining good tracking and I get it out. There's a small fish following my fly. It's cool that we have really clear water at the moment, and this is really the time you need to have these sunglasses even though there's no sun. This is actually photochromic, so it's really, this lens is really light in these conditions. In my opinion, the best option for pike fishing in the autumn with the low light. And they're not only good for seeing the pike under the water, but they also protect your eyes when you're casting or when your friend is casting. And it's good to have a hat as well for that, so you have a little bit of protection for hooks.
Pike! Fish on! Really nice colored pike. Very, very solid fish. Obviously full of food. There's some worms, as you can see. So it's been probably sitting there in the same spot for quite a long time. It's a good fish.
Good.
It's a good fish.
Same spot as before.
So I'm getting the line in so that it doesn't get stuck. And now I'm just holding the line tight. This feels like a better fish. It doesn't move much. And there's a lot of weight. And I can't feel the head shakes. Really. So.
It's a fat one, I think.
Yeah.
In really good shape.
Yeah. We fished this area and didn't have really any small ones here, so we thought that there might be a little bit bigger fish here. We fished it once through. We saw one fish and then we came back second time and it took. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Sama kala.
Probably same fish with Antico earlier. Looks like same size, about. Okay, Stevens. Nice fish. Nice fish.
One more cast.
If you now hook a fish, if it's a take, you get another cast. If you catch a fish, you get 3.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna really fish this through.
Yeah.
No take.
No.
Okay, it's time to stop, but I always do the reel in cast. That's the best cast of the day. So, to the middle, and that's it. So it was a good day.
It was a good day. Wow, maybe about 20 fish.
Yeah, at least.
Some couple good size.
Yep.
Good day. Good day.
That's how you fly fish for pike. Hope you learned something. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave a comment below and we'll try to answer you. But I think this is it for today.
Yeah. And as we say in Finland, kala onnea.